The West through Zelensky is trying to strike. Today they were happily shouting, "Look, we, Storm Shadow, hit Bryansk." Well, the important thing is that they admitted that they did it. And this is a game that can be played by two.
We win the nuclear saber again, mocking Europe and dreaming of a Putin-Trump reunion. Just another day in Moscow's fantasy land. I'm Sofia, and this is Spin Snipers, where we turn Russian propaganda into bite-sized reality check. Just a week ago, different military experts were chanting in a perfect unison, giving Ukraine tomahawks won't change a thing. And yet, the moment it started looking real, the Russian dictator suddenly remembered where his phone was and called the US president after 2 months of a radio silence. What followed felt like a déjà vu all over again. Talks about the upcoming Budapest summit, that mysterious Lavrov-Rubio phone call, and a meeting that, surprise, never happened. It's like watching reruns of a political soap opera that no one asked to renew. So why all this sudden diplomatic noise? Well, as they love to say in Moscow, Russia never lets go, no of its allies, no of its grudges, and definitely not of the demands Putin scribbled down back in 2022.
We are seeing very contradictory statements coming from Kyiv. And we are seeing that the Kyiv regime's position is also full of contradictions. All of this, of course, does not contribute to the peace process. The position of the Russian Federation and President Putin is consistent and well known.
They clearly have no interest in peace talks, still running on the same dusty propaganda manual. The Nazi regime in Kyiv, the poor Russian speakers in Ukraine who must be saved, and of course, the evil NATO that dared to expand. Trump's idea of a ceasefire and talks afterward, Moscow threw it straight in the trash. Putin himself doesn't even bother showing up. Instead, he's saying his loyal messengers to repeat the same line. Russia hasn't achieved its goals, so there will be no peace. Same slogans, same threats, same playbook, only the audience keeps shrinking.
A ceasefire now would mean only one thing. A huge part of Ukraine would stay under the control of a Nazi regime. In that territory, it would become the only place on earth where an entire language is banned by law. And that's despite it being a UN language and the mother tongue of the majority.
We haven't heard Russian nonsense about language in a while, probably because they've run out of arguments to justify their war. Just so you know, Western audience, in Ukraine people can speak Russian. It exists, it's allowed. The problem? Very few actually want to. But let's set the record straight once and for all. Nearly 30 years into independence, Ukraine has been gradually strengthening the status of its national language, especially after Russia's attack in 2014. Since then, Ukrainian has slowly become mandatory in public life. Media, education, service sectors, official documents, you name it. Ukrainian is a state language which apparently drives Russian crazy. Makes sense. Language is also a tool to push propaganda on the population. Funny enough, Poland didn't make Russian official, Lithuania didn't make Russian mandatory, and Romania certainly didn't. Why Ukraine is supposed to roll out the red carpet for Russian? Makes you wonder.
This approach is the exact opposite of what Presidents Trump and Putin agreed on in Anchorage. To focus on the root causes, to drop the idea of dragging Ukraine into NATO, and to fully guarantee the legal rights of Russian-speaking and Russian populations. And we're still ready to continue that work.
They keep saying they want to focus on the root causes of the war, but somehow forget that the root cause is Russia. And really, blaming NATO expansion? Come on, you know better than anyone that NATO countries were not dying to take Ukraine in. Plus, in 2014, when Russia actually started this war, Ukraine was neutral, officially non-aligned. Putin's logic is something else. He wanted to stop NATO's expansion so badly that after invading Ukraine, Finland joined the alliance in 2023, adding over 1,300 kilometers of new NATO-Russia border. So Finland can join, but Ukraine can't? Let's be honest, the root causes have nothing to do with NATO. They're about Putin wanting to rule forever and rebuild an empire in the 21st century. And yeah, we've already covered that protecting Russian speakers nonsense, but here is the sad truth. The eastern cities that used to speak Russian the most, like Kharkiv, are the ones getting hit the hardest. Just this week, Russian drones hit a kindergarten there. Kids were not injured. That's what Moscow calls protection. So yeah, nothing has changed in Russia's position, which makes you wonder, why should Trump even meet with Putin? Just to stroke a dictator's ego and give him another photo op? The White House knows it wouldn't lead anywhere. But in Moscow they are pissed, especially at Western media, which unlike Russian state TV, still dares to tell the truth.
And now the Telegraph will start screaming again. The meeting's off. But how would the Telegraph even know? Did your mom tell you the meeting was canceled? Trump will be the first to announce it. Why is everyone running ahead of the train? What really surprises me is something else. Just how worthless Western media have turned out to be. We were constantly told, don't you get it? This is the standard of journalism. Excuse me. But watching it now, it's like they just hire anyone off a job ad. It's a total disgrace, as they'd say in a good movie.
Oh, but Solovyev, he is a real professional, isn't he? We could never match that level of expertise. Anyway, Moscow's furious. Putin is not invited to the talks, and in Europe he could actually be arrested. Just a reminder, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest back in 2023 for the illegal deportation of Ukrainian children from the occupied territories to Russia. Hungary, ruled by one of the Putin's best buddies, say that they would not arrest the Russian leader. But Poland, a country that still respects the rule of law, warned that if Putin's plane ever flies over its territory, they'll land it and arrest him. Meanwhile, Russian propagandists are shooting, "You'll pay for this." Sure. But maybe start by answering for the thousands of Ukrainian children your country kidnapped.
What's happening now, from that same perspective, is an attempt to paint us as the villains. See, the Russians aren't willing to drop their demands, they're not ready to negotiate. And now the threats are starting to come in directly through Sikorsky, through other Western leaders, even as direct threats against our president. And that, for a second, that's a casus belli. We have to be ready to respond. It's the sovereign right of our state to use force if any country crosses that line.
While Putin still is not ready for peace, Ukraine and Europe are working on their own 12-point plan to end the war. At least that's what Bloomberg reports. And of course, Moscow freaked out, as usual, accusing the EU of wanting to fight on. But let's be honest, it's Russia that refuses to stop and keeps waving its nuclear threats at Europe.
This has nothing to do with Trump. And what's Europe doing sticking its nose in? Who asked those snot-nosed kids? Who asked them what to do or how to do it? Want to pick a fight? Fine, go pick a fight. You'll get nuked right in the face and crawl back. Who even asked these idiots anything? A 12-point plan, sure. Or come up with 96 if you like. It's just a bunch of talentless hacks.
And while Kremlin propagandists keep blaming everyone else for not wanting peace and waving their nukes around, Russia's dictator stays silent. No comments, no answers. Meanwhile, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev, remember last time we nicknamed him the Kremlin blogger, is at it again. And of course, in true Kremlin logic, even Trump is now being accused of wanting war against Russia. Oh yes, everything is everyone else's fault except the Russian guy with nukes.
If anyone still had illusions, here's your reality check. The US is our opponent, and their chatty peacemaker has now fully stepped onto the path of war with Russia. Sure, he's not always actively fighting on the side of Kiev yet, but this is his conflict now, not that of the senile Biden. Of course, people will say he had no choice, that Congress pressured him and so on, but that doesn't change the main point. The decisions he's made are an act of war against Russia. And now, Trump has fully aligned himself with crazy Europe.
Heads up, in the next few days the Kremlin and their puppet media will be treating Trump apart. The same guy their dictator was dreaming of meeting again. That's it for today. I'm Sofia and this was Spin Snipers. Stay curious, stay skeptical and don't fall for the spin.